Joining the Dispatch is one of my favorite rookies so far in the CWL this year. He's clearly making a ton of noise by joining a number of different teams. He's been a hot commodity for rosters like Midnight, Accelerate, and now Denial. Let's give a very big welcome to my good buddy, Brack. How you doing on this fine morning?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good, buddy. I appreciate you for kind of taking this interview early in the day. I know you're currently, in Las Vegas, kind of living the high life with the new team, etc. So I appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule, getting ready for CWL London, which I know is going to be interesting. But I'll be honest, kind of taking it back a little bit, going into the roster mania period, which has been the hot topic for a lot of people over the last few weeks. As someone who does have a little bit of insider knowledge, I'll be honest, I wasn't for sure what was going to be happening with you, right, in terms of like your position on Accelerate, what was really going to be done with that. Before we even get, into your new roster and how you got to Denial, I want to ask you really quickly, what has your rookie season been like in the CWL? What is it like to kind of go through the process now of being in these roster change periods, and how has that kind of that experience been like? Is it what you expected?
No. I expected to stay on one team throughout the entire
Right.
season, not make so many changes. I almost feel like an am switching from so many teams.
Right.
But I mean, it was for the better. I feel like
Mhm.
I have a better opportunity here than I did over than with the Accelerate guys. Um, and then the three of them stayed under there. They're under Elevate now, and Eric went to E6.
Right.
Um, so I think I don't know, every choice that I've made, I felt like I've had to. Like the whole
Mhm.
midnight situation, I had to do that. And then from going to Accelerate to this, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Look at all the players. They guide me so much. I'm blessed to have
Right.
this team.
Yeah, man. I mean, along with the other changes, like you mentioned, it's been announced that previous organization Accelerate, has sold their spot over to Elevate. I mean, talk to me about that from your point of view and how that went for you. And obviously you don't have to be specific in terms of that, but were there other teams that you knew were interested in you? I mean, was there a chance that you possibly stayed on Accelerate, which later became Elevate? I mean, from your point of view, how is that process kind of going?
I actually didn't know Elevate was gonna buy the spot until after the transfer for me going to Denial. Um,
Okay.
I thought Accelerate was just gonna keep the spot. I never heard any intel about that. I don't know why, but yeah, I don't know how many teams or who I'm allowed to say were interested in me.
Right.
But there was about three or four that were.
Mhm.
I'm sure the COD burner he set them all. So
I'm sure like there's been many threads about, okay, it's got to be this team because this happened, this follow happened, and all those things. Now, obviously, like we said, you do get added to Denial. You join quite a few players that obviously come from Red Reserve, which of course is indicated by the sweatshirt that you're wearing right now, and Bance, Joe, and Rated. You also get the chance to play alongside Alex. Now, give me your take on this team a little bit, because it's interesting for me to see this roster on paper due to the recent roster change period. We're starting to see kind of more EU/NA combinations like your team, even FaZe and now Elevate as well. What's it like joining a squad of EU guys, and is the team environment any different?
the vibes have been just straight. They've been positive. There's no arguing. There's constructive criticism. Like it's going like so good right now. Alex, he's really good. We're putting Ben to a sub player back to the
Right.
SOG. That's what he originally was like back in Butte and whatnot. I'm not sure why he was on the Maddox, or why they Maddox just because certain people want to run certain roles. But Ben's been dropping insane numbers. So I think that fits his play style way better. So we'll see what happens. I think. I don't know. I feel like we're gonna do really good at London. We'll see.
Right. Now, I want to ask you quickly about your teammates and stuff like that in terms of your scrims already. I know that's been kind of a short time up to this point, but have they taught you anything? And the reason why I ask is in terms of about mentorship, which I'll get into in a second. But I mean, have they taught you anything that maybe you previously weren't really aware of? I know this is kind of like one of your first chances to play with a group of guys who've been playing for a super long time. I've kind of been in the CWL for the last few years now, but have you learned anything in that short period of time up to this point?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely have. They've been teaching me stuff literally every single day. They're all really experienced. I feel like they're gonna guide me to become even a better player, better person overall. Um,
Right.
so yeah, they've been teaching me stuff. Every single one of them too. Alex as well. We've just been learning it off of each other. So yeah, it's been good.
I feel like for me, many people, kind of like the average person who watches Call of Duty or even watches esports, to be honest with you, they don't really kind of get the idea or they don't fully understand the idea of what it's like to kind of get that mentorship from a veteran or to learn from kind of the guys who have come before you. And, there's been a lot of people who've kind of realized over time, hey, like Rambo's, chance whenever he was the codfather for a lot of guys who later turned into mentors themselves. I think it's important for, young players to kind of have that mentorship, especially earlier on in their career, to kind of learn those things that they can carry over and kind of translate that into other young players of which they'll be playing with later on. I mean, what we talk about, like Simp and Abizi, they're now on, E United with previously, JCap and now Clayster, and then Phantoms, is joining EG with 3 world champions. You have Asim and Celium, who are now with Zoom on FaZe, and, we can kind of go down the list, like Dashi and Optic, even Octane back in the day whenever he was kind of a younger player. One thing that I was really excited about was his ability to play with JCap and AW and kind of how that was going to translate. So I feel like for a lot of young players who are kind of coming into the scene, they've all kind of had that mentorship that has kind of brought them to that next level. I just think that before, most players can kind of fully develop, having that veteran leadership is something super crucial to have and something that is, very important for guys to have in their early careers. And that's one thing that I'm excited about with you on this Denial roster is to have guys who have had that experience in the past, who've been, on the brightest stage. They've been in the grand finals of champs, obviously excluding Alex, but I think that's going to be big for you guys. And is that something that kind of factored into your mind when you joined Denial? I mean, was it something that kind of entered in your mind instantly? It was like, hey, I'm playing with guys who are, are experienced. They are veterans and, in certain aspects. They do come from, the European scene, but they have a lot of experience under their belt. Was that something that kind of entered your mind immediately when you joined this team?
Oh no, it definitely did. And then once I heard Ben was going back to the sub role, I was like, oh, I have to join this team because
Yeah.
I watched his gameplay all throughout BO3, and he was an absolute tank and against other
Right.
teams. So once they told me that, and once like Reese was talking to me, I don't know. I just felt like me and Alex are just gonna feed off of that and become even better players than we already are. No ego intended. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Alex and I have been doing well. I feel when it comes to a LAN environment, and we make it to like if we do make it to the which I feel like we will make it to the late Saturday or Sunday rounds, they'll guide us through those rounds because I've never seen a
Mhm.
Sunday. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, that's something that's really crucial. Like I said, that a lot of people may not think about, like, right? That ability to what it's like to play on a Sunday, what it's like to play in a grand final, even on that final day. There's a lot of things that kind of factor into it, and those older guys can really teach a lot in regards to that. And I know you were starting to mention roles quite a bit, and I want to know your thoughts on this because there's been quite a few CWL teams who have kind of come out and started to say, hey, we're starting to kind of change up our roles in terms of who's running the ICR. We're starting to see whether it was like kind of support SOGs or maybe more of a support Maddox kind of translate into the ICR, more, I guess you could say, Slayer talented players are kind of more transitioning now into the Maddox role, the SOG role, depending. Is that something that's affecting your team? Because I know coming into this, right, you're more of a Maddox player. Alex is as well. You've talked about Bance is kind of translating now to the SOG. Is there a chance we see Rated kind of change things up? I know that, in past you've even ran a main AR in some of the tournaments that I've been familiar with. Is that something that could possibly happen over time? Or are you guys pretty set in, the Maddox and the ICR situation?
I'm pretty sure we're set in stone with how it's gonna be. Um, I don't. Reese has been running a Maddox on frequency on some of the hills. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think he uses the Maddox unless he picks it up.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good with the Maddox, of course, but I don't know. He's just really the way our playstyle fits is we're all really aggressive players, and Reese just has to follow us up, but he's more of a slower player.
Right.
It just fits our playstyle really well. We're just always in the other team's face with us four being so aggressive, trading out each other's kills. So I think it's gonna be set in stone for a while, at least.
Now, in terms of like your roster specifically, like what's one of your favorite qualities about this team? Like, is that aggressiveness that you just mentioned, or is it like maybe the like I said, the vibes that you guys have right now? Is it chemistry? I mean, what do you think is probably one of the more strong attributes that your team has in comparison to the other roster change teams that were made?
I think a couple of benefits that are coming out of this move that I made. On my past teams, there was a couple people that couldn't take constructive criticism, and there'd be arguments. They think they're always
Mm-hmm.
right, blah blah blah. Everyone just feeds off of each other. Like if Ben tells me something, but Joe tells me something else, I'm not gonna sit there and be like, No, I think you guys are wrong. Like I'm gonna take that and
Right.
turn my gameplay into like I'm gonna adjust the way I play. I feel like that's another a big factor. Just the vibes around the house. Me coming out here, I feel like it's gonna play a big factor on how we play at London. If I stayed at home, I wouldn't. We wouldn't have the same vibes. We're just always with each other, whether it's going out to eat, getting in the jacuzzi. We're just always talking about stuff. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Those are two big things, big factors.
Right. Now, one thing that I'm really excited about this team, and I know we were kind of talking about chemistry, a number of different factors, but one thing that I'm just, plain excited to see is your combination with someone like Alex. I know you talked about it a second ago, like, you're the way that he's been playing in scrims up to this point. I mean, what's your thoughts on teaming with someone like him? Because obviously he is on the European side. He's someone who has traditionally ran the Maddox, at least as far as this game is considered. He's kind of recently, over like maybe the last 2 seasons, kind of come onto the scene and really made an impact over the last few months. What is your thoughts on teaming with someone like Alex, who is kind of a hot prospect, much like yourself, coming to this group of players who have kind of already been together? You guys kind of come from a similar background. But what's it like teaming with Alex? What are your thoughts, and how do you guys think that you're going to be duoing essentially on LAN?
I think it's me and Alex are sitting beside each other. We have the two Maddoxes, we have Reese in the middle, and then we have the two Sogs on the other end. I think me and Alex are just gonna simply just take over.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but Alex, he's a great guy. I like him. And I feel like I won't be having to. I didn't feel like I was doing it all essentially on the other teams, but I feel like I was doing really well, and now I feel like I don't have to do as much because they take over the map sometimes. I don't have to do anything in scrims.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens. I feel like Alex and I on as a Maddox duo is this really scary sight. A
Yeah.
lot of teams are overlooking us. A couple of the teams said we're top 12 team at best. Um,
Oh, okay.
we'll
All right.
see. That came from a team in our pool.
Okay.
Yeah, so
That devious laugh that you just had was the exact reaction that I had whenever I saw that you and Alex were on the same team with each other. It was like that same reaction was just like, oh gosh, like this is gonna be something, like this is gonna be really interesting. So, but talking about teams in your pool, let's talk about quickly. Your pool B heading into CWL London. That's the one that you're gonna be following in. What's your initial take on those particular teams? I mean, is there anything that you guys are kind of preparing for? Anything that you want to keep out for? I mean, when you see Genji, Splice, and Luminosity on the paper, is there anything that kind of sticks off the page?
right. I actually played both LG and Spliced at Fort Worth on my Accelerate team, and we literally went under there with no practice. It was just really bad. We almost beat both teams. They were really close maps. I mean, we lost to LG 2-3, lost to Splice 1-3, and we lost both the hard points like really close. So I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be a completely different scenario. I'm not worried about the teams. I know they're really good. I'm not taking that away from them. I feel
Right.
like we have one of the harder pools, or the hardest pool actually. Um, so we'll see what happens. They're all really good teams. Genji especially. I beat both or Genji twice already, and that was a team that was talking reckless. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Like to hear that. Like to hear a little bit of the, some trash talk, maybe going back and forth a little bit coming in the pool should make for a really interesting one. Like you said, one is that by far looks like one of the scariest. Now, one quick thing that I want to ask you before we kind of close things out is that as someone who is now teaming with European players and maybe for the first time, right, at London, you're going to have the crowd behind you, right? Because that's the thing when it comes down to these events that maybe some people don't think of whenever it comes to online is that EU crowd. They love their EU boys, whether what team they're spread apart on, that's going to be a big factor. Does that make you more excited for this event, knowing that majority of the crowd is going to be on your side?
That plays a huge factor as well. Reese said that whenever I joined the team, he's like, I just realized we're gonna have the whole crowd behind us, and I was like, wow, that's actually gonna be nuts because that crowd, I can hear that crowd at Fort Worth whenever they were chanting for teams. Even though you have that soundproof headset and whatnot, you can still hear the crowd. Um, so I feel like it's gonna be like a just every time I hear like the crowd getting hyped for Optic or something, like I would just get chills if I played under them. So we'll see what happens. I feel like it's gonna be playing a huge factor into London for us.
Well, Brack, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.